Use this scene summary to get to grips with Act 1, Scene 4, which you've got available in your texts. Once you've done that, we're going to move on and we're going to look at Act 1, Scene 5, Act 1, Scene 6 briefly, and Act 1, Scene 7 over the course of this video and take some notes on those. Remember to pause when you need to and to use it in a way that helps you. At the start of Act 1, Scene 5, we see Lady Macbeth alone in Macbeth's castle reading a letter which he has sent her. Now, essentially, this functions as a plot recap. Essentially, it tells us two things. One, what the witches have said and how they presented the information. And then two, you get Lady Macbeth's reaction to that. Over the course of this scene, we're looking at the relationship between Lady Macbeth and Macbeth. Now, we don't see them together initially, but she talks about and responds in a way that gives some idea of how she feels about him. Let's have a read. Remember, this is her reading aloud a letter on stage. They met me in the day of success, and I have learned by the perfectest report they have more in them than mortal knowledge. When I burned in desire to question them further, they made themselves air into which they vanished. Whilst I stood, wrapped in the wonder of it, came missives from the king who all hailed me Thane of Cawdor, by which title before these weird sisters saluted me, and referred me to the coming on of time with Hail, King that shall be. This I have thought good to deliver to thee, my dearest partner of greatness, that thou mightst not lose the dews of rejoicing by being ignorant of what greatness is promised thee. Lay it to thy heart, and farewell. There are three important bits in this scene. One, the first red piece you can see on the screen, is the way that Macbeth refers to Lady Macbeth. Notice the noun partner. At this point in the play, they see themselves as equals. It suggests that their marriage is one of connection and some form of genuine shared journey. The second part of that, the red bit at the end of the screen, indicates the secrecy that Macbeth intends to put on this. Now, he hasn't said out loud anything about what he intends to do. We don't know the inside of his head at this point. We don't know whether he intends to do the things that he later goes on to do. However, there is a sense of secrecy in this which is important. It sets up what's to come. The other thing that's worth looking at is the verb promised in the sentence, ignorant of what greatness is promised thee. That indicates a certain level of trust in the witches, which has changed from the earlier scenes when he was talking about them as imperfect speakers. There's a plot summary of Act 1, Scene 5 on the screen for you now, which you can have a look through so that you understand the sequence of events. When you're ready, unpause and we'll do some detailed digging. Initially, you should copy this somewhere onto the top of your script. Lady Macbeth in this scene shows her doubts and uncertainties about whether her husband is strong enough to take power. And that will come in handy when you want topic sentences to talk about Act 1, Scene 5. Glamis thou art, and Cawdor, and shalt be what thou art promised. Yet I do fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. What thou wouldst highly, that thou wouldst holily. Wouldst not play false, and yet wouldst wrongly win. Thou'dst have, great Glamis, that which cries, thus thou must do if thou have it, and that which thou dost fear to do, than wishest should be undone. Hie thee hither, that I may pour my spirits in thine ear, and chastise with the valour of my tongue all that impedes thee from the golden round, which fate and metaphysical aid doth seem to have thee crowned withal. Before you move on, don't forget to pause and highlight the red bits in your script. Enter a messenger. What is your tidings? The king comes here tonight. Thou art mad to say it. Is not thy master with him, who, were it so, would have informed for preparation? So please you, it is true, our Thane is coming. One of my fellows had the speed of him, who, almost dead for breath, had scarcely more than would make up his message. Give him tending. He brings great news. And the messenger leaves again. The raven himself is hoarse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood. Stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Come to my woman's breasts and take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold. We're going to pick apart the scene now in pieces so that you've got a better understanding of what's going on. Remember, your notes should go directly onto your script or into your book in a way that's comfortable for you. Let's have a look at this quotation first. One of the first things Lady Macbeth says about him, after he's referred to her as dearest partner of greatness, is she says, I do fear thy nature, it is too full of the milk of human kindness. Pause the video and have a little think about what this quotation tells us about the relationship between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. Then, once you unpause it, I'll give you some suggestions. So, here we see that she doesn't entirely trust that he has the strength he needs. I do fear thy nature. It has the sense of she fears him being too good. She then says it's too full of the milk of human kindness. Too full, obviously a criticism, and this symbolism of milk suggests things like babies, femininity, this idea that perhaps Macbeth is too nice and won't do the things that he needs to do. This screen should take you through initially the key concepts that you might want to look at for this initial bit of annotation. Use the questions to guide your thinking and pick out the pieces that do that work. We'll analyse some of the key quotations in full in a moment, so initially just concentrate on your opening thoughts. Remember, as we explode quotations, this is a useful reminder of all the sorts of things you might look for. Mood, keywords, the use of the verbs, the structure of the quotation, the sounds, the consonants and the sibilants, and the rhythm. Use these quotations all in the same way. The quotation's in the centre of the screen. There are some keywords at the top and some advanced keywords at the bottom. You'll probably know which ones you can handle, but your answer should include those. Use this to structure your annotations. What I'll do is I'll put each one on the screen, then talk it through very briefly after a pause so that you can have a think, then you can come up with a set of notes around my answers as well. Lady Macbeth says, I do fear thy nature. Here your answer will involve this sense of the pronoun I right at the front, showing that Lady Macbeth is selfish, but it also shows that she is untrusting even of her own husband, and she's ambitious. There is a sense here, for those of you who are going for higher grades, of nature being something bad, and that will tie into the way that Lady Macbeth is presented later, that she seems to favour the unnatural and the dark. It is too full of the milk of human kindness. Here you'd want to look at the idea of the metaphor, using the noun milk to suggest that Macbeth is babyish. It's also worth thinking about the tone of contempt, where Lady Macbeth speaks quite coldly about her husband, and again it reflects on this sense of ambition that she has. Not without ambition, but without the illness that should attend it. Here Lady Macbeth accepts that Macbeth has some ambition, that he wants to do well for himself, but she talks about the illness that should attend it. And there she's talking about the kind of darkness needed to do something difficult to achieve what you want. Now that metaphor illness is quite interesting. There's almost an acknowledgement here from Lady Macbeth that she knows what she's about to do is wrong. You also need to think about the idea of illness suggesting the way that diseases spread, and so perhaps that the evil thoughts that characters have at this point will spread and have bigger ramifications, bigger consequences. Hie thee hither, that I may pour my spirits in thine ear. Loads of things to say about this one. Here Lady Macbeth gives a command. Now Macbeth's not here to hear it, but there is the sense of she sees herself as controlling him. There is a metaphor here, the idea of pouring her spirits, her kind of soul, her own personality into his ear, which gives this sense of both controlling and encouraging him. That's tied to the sense of the imperative verbs as well, that this is a woman who's used to having power. There's almost a witchy sense in the noun spirit, that sense of darkness, again cropping up, that ties Lady Macbeth to the dark and the supernatural. And chastise thee with the valour of my tongue, all that impedes thee from the golden round. Here you might want to look at the key verb chastise, and obviously the golden round, which is a metaphor for the crown. Here Lady Macbeth talks about her own tongue having courage, the valour of my tongue. She sees herself as powerful, but you need to pick up the fact that it's a very traditionally female sort of power. She's not talking about beating Macbeth into behaving. She's talking about persuading him, or nagging him, or convincing him, using the power of her speech, which ties into the way that in Shakespearean times in particular, but also in the medieval times in which the play is set, women were limited to power in the domestic sphere or through their husbands or male figures in their lives. Here, Lady Macbeth seems to be all about control and equally about greed, her focus on the golden round. The crown seems to be something that she desperately wants at this point. We now see a different tone from her. Come, you spirits, unsex me here. Here, you see two commands, and you also see this sense of power. She's calling on dark magic. There's something dangerous about her here, which is a change from the way we've seen her before. The idea of unsex me here, she's talking about losing her feminine characteristics, some of those that she sees as weak, and taking a more powerful form in order to be able to act directly. Come, take my milk for gall. Here she seems to be changing who she is and what she is. She talks about swapping her milk for poison, gall. That again adds to this sense of danger. It also links to this idea of motherhood, that she's giving away her motherhood, her ability to create innocence, and almost in some senses metaphorically breeding evil. Come, thick night, that my keen knife not see the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark. Here she's hiding two things. She's hiding her knowledge of her own action. My keen knife not see the wound it makes, which she's suggesting killing here, but she doesn't want to look at it. She also doesn't want heaven to see it, which suggests a sense of awareness that what she's doing is evil. You should pause here and take a good look at your overall set of notes and how Shakespeare presents Lady Macbeth as a powerful woman. Around the side of this screen, there are some key things you might want to look at while you're doing that. Check in with your teacher to see whether you need to do this as an essay paragraph or a couple of essay paragraphs before you move on. Here's an example of how to compose a paragraph. We're looking only at the higher grades here, particularly. Okay? You should have a sentence which explains clearly what the writer was aiming to do. Give us your point, your topic sentence. Then, two sentences that explore the writer's message about human nature or society. Introduce your quotation. Put your quotation in, don't forget your quotation marks, then explode your quotation. What are the keywords and how do they affect the audience and reader? An example will appear on screen now. In the next part of the scene, Lady Macbeth enters to greet Lady Macbeth. Great Glamis, worthy Cawdor, greater than both by the all hail hereafter, thy letters have transported me beyond this ignorant presence, and I feel now the future in the instant. My dearest love, Duncan comes here tonight. And when goes hence? Tomorrow, as he purposes. Oh, never shall sun that morrow see. Your face, my thane, is as a book where men may read strange matters. To beguile the time, look like the time. Bear welcome in your eye, your hand, your tongue. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. He that's coming must be provided for, and you shall put this night's great business into my dispatch, which shall to all our nights and days to come give solely sovereign sway and masterdom. Highlight up your notes here, and let's have a look at what's being said. The first red quote, to beguile the time, look like the time. If you want to fool people, you have to look like you fit in. That's more obvious in the second quote, the metaphor look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. We start with the simile of looking like the innocent flower. Appear, well-spoken, beautiful, harmless, those kinds of ideas. However, then the metaphorical serpent underneath has this sense of danger hidden away. Notice again, serpents are linked to poison, so this idea of that illness and poison spreading through the play, darkening things. Remember, at this point they've explicitly said that they will kill the king. That's been implied between them, that he will never see tomorrow. So you also have that sense of threat from the idea of the serpent. And there's also the biblical symbolism that the serpent traditionally is linked to the first evil by corrupting Eve and therefore also corrupting Adam. You'll be able to get further notes on that from your teacher. Final thing, in the penultimate red one, you shall put this night's great business into my dispatch, we see Lady Macbeth telling Macbeth to leave everything to her. We will speak further. Only look up clear, to alter favour ever is to fear. Leave all the rest to me. Notice the confidence and the command in that last line. Here you might want to take a pause and look at how does Shakespeare present the relationship between Lady Macbeth and Macbeth in the bit that you've just taken notes on. Remember to check in with your teacher to see whether they want you to write it up as some essay paragraphs. Act 1, Scene 7 focuses on ideas about ambition. If it were done when it's done, then it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and end-all here, but here, upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump the life to come. But in these cases we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions which, being taught, return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poisoned chalice to our own lips. This scene is all about doubt. This is about Macbeth struggling with the concept of what he wants to do. He knows he wants to kill the king. He knows that if he kills the king, there are great rewards to come. But he fears the consequences for a number of reasons. Let's work through them. At the very beginning, in the first red bits, he talks about doing this quickly. That adverb suggests that he wants this over and done with because he's frightened of it. Notice the pronoun it, which is repeated throughout the play. He struggles to talk directly about the idea of murder. He tends to refer to it either by the pronoun it or by words such as assassination, which make it seem more acceptable. In the second half of this speech, he says, we still have judgment here, and we jump the life to come. He fears two things. He fears heaven, and having to go to heaven and justify what he'd done, and then end up in hell. And he fears judgment still on earth. He also fears revenge. We but teach bloody instructions which being taught return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poisoned chalice to our own lips. That lovely metaphor at the end, the idea of drinking from your own poisoned chalice, talking about karma. Notice the pronoun our and we. Macbeth is starting to use more formal, more royal language, suggesting he sees himself in the position of king already. He now gives himself some good reasons to not kill Duncan. Let's have a look at this section. He's here in double trust. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed. Then, as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels, trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off, and pity, like a naked newborn babe striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim, horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, that tears shall drown the wind. 3 parts here. 1. Macbeth is A, related to Duncan, and B, his subject, as in you shouldn't kill your king. Both of those things are considered bad manners. Then he's also the host. So within his own castle, Duncan should be able to rely on protection. He can't. Macbeth is going to kill him. Then, in the middle section of the speech, notice words like meek, clear, and angels, suggesting Duncan was a nice man. He was a good king. He was, because of his position in society, the rightful ruler. The deep damnation of his taking off is Macbeth reminding us again that he knows he will go to hell, that this is a choice to make an evil action. And the last line, which isn't in red but I quite like, tears shall drown the wind, seems to suggest that Duncan is popular in Scotland, but also that he is the natural king, and that all kinds of havoc, both for people and with the natural world, will take place if he's killed. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which overleaps itself and falls on the other. Here Macbeth talks about there's nothing to drive him on. He's not a horse, there's nothing to drive him forward, except for his vaulting ambition. That adjective vaulting suggesting that Macbeth knows he's trying to leap over the rightful chain of events. Notice the verb overleaps and falls, that Macbeth is aware that this potentially is going to end in disaster. and it foreshadows the way that his ambition will take him to dark places in the end.